Hi everybody, I am Aunt Ginger. You might also know me as Aliera of Wayrest, the runaway queen, the arms dealer, the thief. That's right, I'm in the game. Well, actually the next one. But I decided, 25 years later to go back and do a playthrough. It's actually a little bit harder than I thought, because, let's see, returning east. The world is so large! I had forgotten about that. So it has been some time. I went looking for a Minotaur for one of the mini quests, and I ran into all sorts of, it was hilarious, I ran into all sorts of memes online recently about side quests and whatnot, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna turn around and grab the parts of the staff and try and put them back together and get the rightful emperor on the throne. So that is where we are. That's the plan. So I'm heading towards Stone Keep. I think that's out. Rather than heading up every dungeon along the way. I'm already encumbered, as you can see. I'm dropping loot like it's okay. So we're gonna get this rocking and rolling because I need to hit another town and offload my gear and so on. I comfort myself by saying that, the queen would have hired somebody else at the price of 300 gold crowns. I have something like 1,000. There's no way another adventurer won't do this, so we're heading out. Oh dear, is that an inn? We can grab some sleep. I could use it for my health. Oh my god, I forgot how loud that is. The epicness! Enter the Howling Dagger, rubbing the chill night air from your bones. Tavern is full of people bustling. Bustling in the night. Alright. Buy drinks. I can't spend the night here. Well, that's unfortunate. What good are you then? I've ever heard of an inn you couldn't sleep in. What is this? What is that even? South. And then to the east. Oh, and right into the drink. Me and water, man. This happens to me in real life too. I'm not gonna lie. It's really good that I'm like one card away from being Red Cross certified. Because me and water do not get along. It's no joke. I lived in the north for like 27 years. And there are a lot of places where it ices over, and I love being outdoors, so there's more than one time when I put myself through the ice, not in any sort of horrible way or anything like that. The Red Cross certification did not come into play, but it's actually a little bit dangerous here in the winter because of things like that. Even when you're playing, you just get home fast because you can get frostbite and whatnot. Right into the water. We're going straight east. Finding Stone Keep. I feel good about this. Anybody who's familiar with the series is not at all nonplussed by my epic odyssey here, because they're all kind of used to the fact that you clock just an insane amount of hours playing the game. In a way, taking a side quest in TES is almost superfluous. The only thing you really do it for is so that you're not grinding, you're actually just leveling up. Which is very Dungeons & Dragons. It's very true to the sort of atmosphere that it gives. So, and it is way cooler than grinding, so that's kind of an awesome feature, that you can take those side quests instead of sitting there near a spawn point and just camping. What on earth is this? Is this a Minotaur's lair? I'm so bad about this. Nope. Just a rando island in the middle of nowhere. I'm alright with that. I was joking around with one of the gamers online that they should get their girlfriend a huge map because they couldn't get her into Skyrim. And it's like, you need to buy a very large, very detailed map and put it above the TV. Because it's very frustrating, especially for chicks who are very goal-oriented. Especially if you're under the age of about 50. We're all used to having jobs and having the idea that we have to have a family, and that we're the caretaker of that family. So you make lists like it's okay, there's the family whiteboards, the family calendar, you know how to use a planner, stuff like that. So this sort of running around in the wilderness It's a little bit, it's almost unnerving, and you really do want a map for it. It's kind of a funny inclination. So you'll actually probably, during this series especially, we have all sorts of different things on the channel. We're doing Game of Thrones because S8 is coming back on. And there's backstory after the Red Wedding that HBO did approve and help write. Fairly sure they helped write it. It says HBO right on it. And, you know, some people don't have that. So we're playing it. I watched Detroit Become Human on Jacksepticeye's channel as a TV miniseries. And I actually found it in a way more enjoyable than I would have if I played the game, because I don't watch a lot of TV, obviously. I read and I play video games, so generally you're a one or the other. And I just thought it was the coolest to watch it in that way, to like just have this TV series feeling. Because it's really how the game was set up, you know, and obviously the fails and everything were kind of haha. But it was very adult Let's Play, and that was an interesting way to do that. That was really cool to be able to watch that. Am I hemmed in here? Yeah. So, getting lost is my forte, so this is going to be very exciting, finding Stone Keep. I can get lost like nobody's business. I am so good at it, it's not even funny. I tend not to run in circles either. Like, my getting lost circuits are very impressive. I got lost 2 blocks over from my destination when I was visiting Wisconsin. Took my son for a walk. Thankfully, I have Google Maps and whatnot, and there just happened to be this section of streets that didn't reconnect. And, I do have a sense of direction, but I wound up back there where there was just no through path, and, they were all back streets and whatnot. So I had to go all the way back around to where it went into that section of the suburbs and then walk way down back, because I took the back roads and they didn't connect. So, like I said, landmarks and maps and that sort of thing are like kind of crucial for me. This is very interesting. So there's no lack of landmarks. They have different patterns in every section, and that's really kind of cool. If I recall right, they're pretty much uniform no matter where you are. I don't think that they even changed the patterns per land, and I even had thought to suggest that because that really would have been a cool way to represent the different cultures. I don't think that they would have had the time and the resources for it. This was back when you built everything by hand, and only indie gamers really know that struggle now. Indie gaming companies, where you actually build your engine. So, everyone's doing Unity and Unreal and all of that, or they're part of this ginormous megalith of a company where you have code monkeys cranking it out like it's okay. And then your main programmers are, assembling the bits and bobs. And so you're looking at man hours instead of hourly production output. So as a result, unless you're Blizzard, your game does still get done on time because you just have so many people working on the pieces of it. I am running into a lot of city here, and I keep hoping to hit an armor. This isn't quite as bad as when I tried to play Men's of Aranzan. That was hilarious. It was nighttime as well, and I could not find the guard outpost to save my life. It was hilarious. They had buckets all over the city and everything. It was actually a common complaint that off the drop, it was the last of the gold boxes, that, it was just so hard to maneuver there. But here, it is really more the case that I can't find a very nice whore or, traveler to ask to fill out my map for me, which is tragic and disappointing. I know that as the games evolved, that they got more into the not just lore, but the lore actually manifesting insofar as the way that races armor and clothing looked, and so on. But across the realms right now, it's all very uniform. So finding things is very interesting, because, like I said, there are landmarks, but they're they kind of don't have like that sense of where I am that I'm used to. Are you an armory? Because if you were an armory, I might just like camp here. See if I can camp. What on earth is that? Well, let's see if it's open. Lock has nothing to fear from me. What time is that? 3:15? Camp for a while. Let's see if we can pull off until sunrise. Okay, wake up, it's daytime. What is in here? You enter the conclave of faith, and cool breeze follows you into the hollowed halls. You can hear chanting in the distance. What is a conclave of faith? Maybe I can get healed here. Oh, cool. Their priests are a little bit crazy. So. Well, the wolf, thou art healed. My handle is the wolf, and I had forgotten. It's been so long since I played anything D&D based. It did not occur to me that "the" would be my first name. So. Alright, so I'm all healed up. Let's click a save on. Because I mean, there's no way I'm near Stonekeep yet, but certainly trekking along. Alright, so. Healed and heading east. So that was a nice pit stop. Let's take a look around and see if there's anywhere I can become unencumbered. I would give a lot for my Daggerfall cart. I want my Daggerfall cart. This is why we can't have nice things. Of course, then you run into the ridiculousness like you do with World of Warcraft, where you can carry 100 spiders' heads or whatever it was. That just seems unlikely. So, what are you gonna do? Warcraft did just get re-released. The original version on GOG for like $5. So if you loved the series, it's one of the few that I played like back to back all the way through. I loved World of Warcraft. I thought it was the coolest strategy game since Siege, honestly. We also have Siege on the channel. If you've never seen it before, it was the original Castle Defense. There might have been one before it, but it was the first one that I knew of. And it was awesome because you actually were able to defend a castle against invaders and use the different siege equipment to get the best ratio of casualties. So you had all different, you know, like you had heroes and archers and so on, and you would man the crenellations in the inner keep, and unless the inner keep was taken, you didn't actually lose the castle, but obviously you would take massive casualties. So as you played through, you got this sense of castle defense that you don't in a lot of modern games, and that was awesome. And then of course World of Warcraft came out, and that had the whole bit for, they want me to go for a swim, it's not even my fault this time. They had the whole bit where you did more exploration, and that was cool. The next time you ran into that was, of course, StarCraft, which was, I think, also by Blizzard, where you would have to place your ghost and whatnot after you explored as far as you could. But Scouts, the short version of that, Scouting was actually very interesting because it was much more of a hunter-gatherer than a castle defense. But both were excellent strategy games, and both taught you something incredible. My other personal favorite is Nobunaga's Ambition. Because that was troop deployment. That's the second one like that. That was troop deployment, so that pretty much covered all of your bases as far as if you had any sort of curiosity into... it was older, obviously. A fortified position is still awesome in combat, but it's a little bit updated because we do have things like tanks and so on. But if you've ever seen Kelly's Heroes, a lot of that's going to hold true. So, those are just the 3 boss games in tabletopping, basically. So, barring RPG. So, if you're into strategy, that is like just the bee's knees there. Did I stay on the... No, I did not. So we have this giant lake, which would be on a map, but I haven't even... I want to say that there's not a zoom feature on my map. So, I don't recall there being a way to ask for directions from anyone either. So, I remember that this was back in the day when we were doing a lot in the way of hand-drawn maps. Ultima Savage Empire was one of the first times that I actually just cracked and drew a map, because the ant caves, the Queen Ant is actually located, spoiler alert, very close to the entrance. And I just couldn't find her, so I did wind up mapping those caverns. So this was back in the day prior to that sort of, oh Lord have mercy, prior to that sort of regular mapping. They said that the monster's name would be on the labyrinth, so that there would be an indicator. R.I.P. Huh, so this is a catacombs. That's interesting. Does not occur to me to click on it. You know, whatever. Right into the drink. We'll just keep swimming. We'll jellyfish it if we get tired. Jellyfishing is when you dangle downwards. Do not try this without certification. The Red Cross will actually teach you how to be certified to be a lifeguard. I think that I was something like, you had to be able to be in the water for an hour or something, and I didn't complete that card. I was not yet an endurance sports junkie when I was 12. I've evolved. I could probably go back and do it. I don't know if they'd still be good even. I certainly didn't, I didn't keep them from year to year as I got older. Alright, I feel good about this. We've got a road. We've got hay bales. What's not to love? On the upside, everything is paved. On the downside, these roads do seem to lead to anywhere. So I am going to have to get my hands on a strategy guide if there's one out there. I know for a fact that none of the gamers who beta tested or worked with the company or were in the company or anything like that wrote any of them until, I want to say Daggerfall, but it was right at the end, so I don't remember if the offer was... My dad got offered to co-author on it because he was very good at mapping out that sort of thing, like what's a good strategy, not just a hints guide, but like what a good strategy throughout the game was. And he did decline. He was working full-time at the time and he had 3 children, so he turned that down, which was kind of a bummer. I mean, I was rooting for him to do it, but that's rough. It was like he was very introverted and, like I said, he had 3 kids, he had his responsibilities, and he was okay with that, so... that stinks, but it was either for Morrowind or it was for Daggerfall, and I want to say it was for Daggerfall because it was when they first introduced the classes and whatnot, and so you really kind of needed that guidance, but they certainly didn't have one for Arena, so this is an interesting exercise in my own navigational skills and whatnot. I was hoping that what I remembered would steer me a little bit faster, and I feel like it is, because I kind of know when to ditch out. Like, I know that I'm not going to find the Minotaur in a comprehensible amount of time for a viewer, and I can go through the forums and reaffirm that and whatever. But, because there's not that navigational system. Let's see if there's a way... No, they have the old Ultima Underworld writing, so I can take notes, like it's okay, but I don't have, I can go east, I can go west, I can go north, a certain one. I don't have a zoom out feature that lets me see a world map. I'm wondering if I get that later. I certainly have a blank space. I don't remember doing that. Don't remember that popping up, so I don't think so. Oh well. It was something that was added on into later games and became very popular. I think with Ultima 9, Morrowind picked it up at the same time. Just because people expressed that desire. It wasn't something that you had in gaming groups. So all of this was very new. The fact that it's missing isn't that it's missing. It's that it was never there to begin with. So when you're building a game engine and you're constructing all of this, that's not necessarily something that was in there. In the tripartite screen, you would see that. The old Ultimas and whatnot, you would see that corner map. They decided to use the map that you click on, that it would be more interesting and more true to the feeling that they were going for and so on. So, but it wasn't the case that, they had that little floating map that got real popular, like I said, around the time of Morrowind. But it wasn't that it was missing. It was that that was just not something that was normally included, and it did slowly become in demand with games like Ultima and whatnot, which was a different sort of RPG. That was a party-based RPG, and it was third person at first. But it was so popular that they did eventually include it in pretty much everything. So, and then Warcraft came out where the map was central, so that was really cool. Because you didn't know what you didn't know. That takes place in this with the quill, where you can label things and you do eventually find out how a city is laid out and whatnot. And you can spend some time exploring the cities. They didn't have as much in the way with the conversations with NPCs. I think they were trying to get away from that Bard's Tale trope. There was a lot of joking around at the time, and I'm trying to remember if it was between all the beta testers or if it was just like interior to my family. But there was a lot of joking around at the time that Heroes of Might and Magic, Bard's Tale, all of that they were getting worn out. You know, the Arga Trap was one of our big jokes because it was in like frickin' everywhere, and it you know, like you start out at the training grounds, and it was every single time, and it was just, they were upgrading the graphics on everything. And we were, you know, all hail the great Lord British about that because he would start every game engine from scratch, and we really just felt that that's what people were looking for. So obviously, you know, this company, Bethesda, was going to take off because they had that same sort of initiative. So that was very much the rebellion, and so you wind up with interesting conundrums where you're like, oh, I love that it's a new engine and they have handmade everything and they're not gonna reboot it and everything like that, and then you're also like, oh my god, I want a map. So and since this was right at the birth of the internet, it's not going to be the case that I'm going to pull up a forum where they're like, oh, we made a map and we just decided to rando post it and it went around social media a little bit and it hit the groups or whatever. They didn't have that. What you had was listservs and you had forums, but you didn't have that central hub that social media provides, where you have, like the normies were over on AOL, and that's where you talk about tennis or whatever, if that was your thing. You really didn't bring it into, I'm assuming Stone Keep will pop up on my map if I do trend near it. But you didn't really go into that as much unless you emailed someone privately, and that would happen outside the forums if you became friends throughout the course of chatting about whatever game you were playing, or you know, it was very techie based over on CompuServe. I mean, it's not that they didn't have other forums, it was that AOL really did the whole like mainstream, some people just want to talk about tennis or golf or, you know, whatever it was that was entertaining at the time, TV shows or so on. And that's why AOL really took off, and even though they came out after CompuServe, and you see that a lot where somebody will come out with something but then something else will succeed. Like there was MySpace and then there was Facebook. So that's very, very normal. I got turned around here while I was talking. We want to be heading east. So I know that Stone Keep is located in central southern Hammerfell, but all I can really do is shoot east and like wing in a prayer right here and pretty much enjoy the scenery. So since we're gonna get, oh, berry bush. I always want to harvest these because I'm used to the interactive interface that they eventually came up with objects. It's natural to programming language that you would go, oh, object, and then include more things in it as you progressed. So it was no surprise that they became interactive in the way that adventure games did, because, you know, that's just the way it is. So when Warcraft did that, where you could enchant and harvest and so on and build your skills, that was no surprise. That game was a surprise to nobody. But let's take a look at our map again. Alright, so we're going to shoot the gap there. We are still in Dragon Grove. I think they're rather than taking you for the world's longest road trip. I'm going to see as I trend east if I can get over to Stone Keep on my own time, and then we'll pick it up there. So thank you so much for coming along for the ride. If you're new to the series, you can check it out. There's a couple entertaining segments. They're all pretty much like this, where I kind of take you through. Most gamers aren't familiar with how games are made, and so they miss out a lot on Easter eggs. They miss out a lot on perspective on the games, on being able to talk about it with their friends, because they don't exactly know how they're put together, where they'll come up short as far as like something they like or they don't like, because they don't do the whole interface gameplay and then game theory, which, you know, we obviously were trained on simply by beta testing, or by the fact that there were new games, and so we had to learn the controls, which is now considered faulty, which is fine. People have engines, so that makes sense that it's standardized now, and they should have a higher standard than they did way back in the day. And people will make fun of retro a little bit, and there are some games that were big that maybe shouldn't have been because of that, where it's just like the interface was ridiculous. But some of them were actually incredible because they were so innovative that, you know, you kind of can't reproduce that new car smell. You know, you kind of can't reproduce that the way that you do when you have an engine. You know, like I suggested somewhere that object to character interaction is lacking because you don't have the character, and you can see this a lot in Detroit Become Human. You don't have, and it looked fine for a robot, but you don't have the character reacting to an object that they can interact with, and all you really have to do is place a flag there to give your character a reaction to kind of produce that, and from there programmers will naturally build it into their engines, and I don't expect that to take off fast, but that is my number one suggestion. Like, that is definitely lacking as far as a realistic perspective, but also something that you as the player expects, that you kind of mess up on the interface. Like you're seeing, you know, like when you watch me play retro, that we mess up on the interface sometimes, and in arcade that's fine. In arcade, though, it's part of the challenge. But not so much, you know, now with console gaming, you're supposed to be one with your controller and experience motion and all of that. So this is kind of what I'm covering with Arena. If you have any interest at all in programming, in games journalism, in gaming, in game forums, in game groups, in, you know, tabletopping to gaming and that sort of thing, this is really going to be the series for you. In between, I do intersperse it with Elder Scrolls Legends. I bought all of the packs for Elder Scrolls Online, so I do intend to keep up with modern day lore because I found that it was so informative that my core audience was trailing, where like they wouldn't, this isn't something that it's more like the History Channel, you know, or you know, I don't quite have enough stuff or you know, enough variety where I can make it like, oh god, what's the one with the Navy SEAL and the redhead where they blow stuff up all the time? You know, like that sort of informative, but it's that type of interaction. So I do intersperse it because I recognize, you know, that people want a little bit more out of their experience, their weekly experience of entertainment, than just taking you back through what was in gaming. That it is a lot more like one of those Nova, or, you know, that sort of thing. So you get some education with your gaming in this, and that's awesome. You can run into that a couple times on the channel, so drop us a like and subscribe, as you can scroll up and down the playlist and have some fun in between, if you're doing a watch through, or, you know, tune into us every week. I try and put up at least one TES every week, so you can kind of get to know everything behind the scenes, how they worked, how they evolved, everything like that, and just, you know, how gaming evolved along with them and how cool it was to be a part of that, just so that you kind of know games a little bit better. So drop us a like and subscribe. I am Anjindra. It's also just a screen name. Ladies, protect yourselves. The internet is an open place. So I am Anjindra. You might also know me as Aliera of Wayrest, and this is What to Play Next. Check out the channel. Most of them are just for fun, although I do game theory critique and so on throughout. So thank you very much for watching. As always, much love.